All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and an expert predicts the Washington Commanders to land elite edge rusher, Jacksonville Jaguars free agent Josh Allen. That Jaguars edge rusher, we're going to take a look at his advanced stats. We're going to talk about why he's the perfect fit for us and why he would potentially want to even come to us as well. And also, can the Commanders even afford a Josh Allen level free agency signing? Not even just Josh Allen specifically, but just a Josh Allen type of free agent, a guy that's going to demand probably market setting money type of situation. Also, we're going to compare the Commanders' current edge rushers, or the ones at least that were on contract last year, to Josh Allen as well. And the stats are not even close. I'm going to go ahead and give you that fair warning right now. So how much do the Commanders even need a top edge rusher and sack specialist in a guy like a Josh Allen? Is that just like a luxury, or is it something that we truly, really need right now? But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all the content. Again, your one-stop shop for everything Commanders. Now we're starting to dive into some free agency stuff, so I'm ready to have fun. Of course, we're still in this whole saga of figuring out who our next head coach is going to be, but in the meantime, until we get any serious updates on anything that's going on, I'm going to update y'all on everything else. We're going to talk draft. We're going to still do some more mock drafts together, call-in shows, live streams, all of that type of stuff. So make sure you stay tuned for all of the content coming, no matter how small, no matter how big, no matter if it's a fact, if it's an opinion, we're going to discuss it. So anything pertaining to the Washington Commanders, stay tuned, and let's go ahead and get to this video. Let's get it. All right, so Pro Football Focus said back on January 11th that the top landing spots for Josh Allen are the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Denver Broncos, Atlanta Falcons, New York Giants, and the Washington Commanders. Then they also posed the question other. So they're basically leaving it open-ended. Outside of those top spots, if you want to add another team, who would be the top landing spot for Josh Allen? And of course, the Jaguars need to be included. They're his current team right now, and it's quite likely that he could just end up staying, but you never know, man. The Washington Commanders could be very persuasive, especially when we're talking money. We're going to talk about that later in the video, comparing our cap space to the Jaguars' cap space. I mean, of course, the Jaguars can make some moves. There's always a way to finesse it, but are they as desperate as we are to give him the most money possible? We're going to talk about that later. But we also have Marissa Myers. She did an article on the top landing spots for Josh Allen in free agency. She tweeted out, Josh Allen has consistently elevated his game and should be considered a top 10 edge rusher in the NFL. And we're going to dive into what that means with he's consistently elevated his game, because we're going to take a deeper dive into that and break down how he actually literally has gotten better every single season since he's gotten to the NFL. So with that trajectory, if we sign him as a free agent, you can expect him to be even better than he's already been. And what he's already been is way better than anything we've had in a long time. Again, we're going to compare our edge rushers to Josh Allen as well. Continuing the tweet, with being a free agent, the Washington Commanders or Detroit Lions make up two teams listed in my article as the top landing spots. And then when you go to the article, she talks about all of the different teams, gives breakdowns as to why. I mean, Josh Allen himself, she said, as he has done throughout his entire NFL career, Josh Allen continues to develop and improve his skills season by season. Allen has become the Jacksonville Jaguars' key defensive player and is coming off of a 2023 year with 90 pressures, 19 sacks, and 40 stops. Allen is truly evolving into one of the league's best pass rushers, and with being a free agent, there are multiple top teams that should have interest in him. Now, I'm not exactly sure where the 19 sacks is coming from, because everywhere else I look, I see 17.5, but it is what it is. And then when she talks about the Jacksonville Jaguars, she says, when you have a star edge rusher like Allen, you do what is needed to retain him. Allen has become a staple in the defensive line, and while Travon Walker has shown flashes, my Georgia Bulldog, ideally they want to keep that duo together for the foreseeable future. And I understand, I love Travon Walker, but he's more of a flashy guy. It's more so here and there, on and off, whereas Josh Allen has been arguably easily the most consistent between the two. And to lose that would hurt the Jaguars big time. The Jaguars will most likely use the franchise tag to keep Allen playing for them if a deal can't be reached, which is something we're going to talk about later in the video. Then they also bring up the Rams, the Detroit Lions, all kinds of teams. But when they talk about the Commanders in this article, she says if the Jaguars and Allen can't reach a long-term deal or he is traded, the Commanders are the first team that comes to mind. They were third to last in pressures with 111 last year, which equated to just 39 sacks. With Chase Young and Montez Sweat traded, the defensive line needs a boost under whoever the new head coach is going to be. Allen would provide that spark with his quickness off the line and a wide array of hand counters to impact the quarterback. With having the most cap space as well, Washington has no shortage on the amount they can offer. And we're going to dive into that as well. We're going to talk about cap space. We're going to talk about need and everything like that. Let's go ahead and talk about need first. Well, first of all, we traded away our top 2 edge rushers mid-season. Chase Young to the 49ers for a 3rd round compensatory pick, which is going to end up being the 100th pick overall in the draft. And then Montez Sweat to the Bears for a high 2nd round pick. But then on top of all of that, every edge rusher other than rookies KJ Henry and Andre Jones is not on contract right now. Well, technically, Shaka Toney is on contract as well, but I mean, as of right now, what's going on with that situation? So as of today, the only edge rushers in our room right now are KJ Henry, Andre Jones, and Shaka Toney under contract. Even Casey Toohill and James Smith-Williams are unrestricted free agents right now, and FL Bada, who I like, but is not only an unrestricted free agent, but is also currently on IR. We have just as much of a chance to sign any of those guys I just named as every other 31 NFL teams. So, I mean, who even knows if we bring those guys back? And even if we do, even if we did somehow re-sign all of those guys, which I don't think is highly likely, because like I keep saying, whenever you start over with a franchise, you bring in a new GM, new head coach, and all that type of stuff, the guys that are actually the least safe are the backups, the depth guys, because typically the previous regime is more attached to those guys and see more value in those guys than another talent evaluator, GM, head coach, president of football operations, whatever the new regime will ever see in those same exact guys. Starters, like, everybody agrees Terry McLaurin's great. Everybody agrees Jonathan Allen's good. Everybody agrees Daron Payne is good, and so on and so forth. But when it comes to those secret players, those underrated guys, those guys that Ron Rivera, Martin Mayhew, and that previous regime felt were underrated, Adam Peters is very likely not to see the same thing. He's going to look at another random, decent edge rusher depth guy and bring him in. Like even Cornelius Lucas as a swing tackle, your backup right and left tackle. Maybe Adam Peters has another guy in mind that he values more as that type of guy than a Cornelius Lucas. So, like I've been saying, those edge rusher, those guys that are decent, not certified starters, that are like, of course, unanimous across the NFL, those guys are the least safe when it comes to roster turnover. So even if somehow we re-sign all of those guys, and again, I highly doubt it, we still have a huge need at edge rusher. Even if we re-sign all of those guys, you can even argue that edge rusher is our biggest need right now, because even though we all desperately want to upgrade the tackle position, at least we have bodies on the team. At least we have decent, kind of necessarily bad, but at least straight, decent, at times good bodies at tackle right now in Charles Leno and Andrew Wiley. The edge position right now wouldn't even necessarily just be an upgrade. We just need people in the position, period, right now that can play edge rusher right now. We don't even have a starter. As much as we hate Charles Leno and Andrew Wiley, especially what they did this past season, at the very least, they're a starter. They're not a good starter in both of their cases, but they're a starter. We literally don't have a starter at edge rusher right now. Even if you do re-sign Case Toohill and J. Smith-Williams, it's still questionable. You can easily argue the edge rusher is an even bigger need. So let's take a look at what our edge rushers did last year, especially as far as grades go. When you're looking at grades, our highest graded edge rusher was Jalen Harris with a 59.3 overall grade, and he only played like 87 snaps. Out of the guys that played the most snaps, you have KJ Henry with a 57 grade, 56.9 to be exact, 95th out of 118 edge rushers. Casey Toohill, a 58.6 overall grade, 90th out of 118 edge rushers. And then you have Casey Toohill with a 52.1 grade. That's 107th out of 118 edge rushers that, you know, are eligible to be graded because they played enough snaps. Because again, Jalen Harris, who played 87 snaps, he's our highest graded edge rusher on our team, but that guy didn't even play enough snaps to technically be graded. So out of the guys that are able to be graded because they played enough snaps last season. The highest is James Smith-Williams with a 58.6 grade. Again, 90th out of 118. Out of all of our best edge rushers, the best one is 90th out of 118 eligible edge rushers. That's absolutely insane. So you see the need, right? I mean, if we're just even talking sacks, let's just go back to the surface. Instead of going to grades and diving into advanced stuff, we're going to get back to the advanced stats. We're definitely going to dive into that. But just surface. The Commanders were second to last in sacks last year. The only team that had less sacks than us were the Patriots by 3. They had 36, we had 39. And then it's the Jaguars with 40. And Josh Allen was carrying that team in sacks because he's one of the top sack leaders in the NFL, and yet his team is third to last in sacks, only ahead of us and the Patriots. So there's a desperate need for the Jaguars, because you could say that honestly, without Josh Allen, the Jaguars will be worse at getting sacks than we are. So that's really interesting. The Jaguars may be even a little bit more desperate to keep him than we are to get him. But, I mean, you have teams out here that almost had double the sacks we had. The Ravens had 60. They led the NFL in sacks with 60. Again, we had 39. That's absolutely unacceptable, man. And if you're taking a look at Josh Allen specifically, he was tied for second in the NFL in sacks last year with 17.5. TJ Watt had 19, him just by himself, number one. And then Josh Allen and Trey Hendrickson from the Cincinnati Bengals both had 17.5 each. And then under that, you have Khalil Mack with 17. Danielle Hunter with 16.5. Max Crosby with 14.5. Micah Parsons with 14. Myles Garrett with 14. Montez Sweat, shouts out him, 12.5. Aiden Hutchinson with 11.5. Like, all of these elite edge rushers in the NFL, Josh Allen was tied for second above all of them except for TJ Watt in sacks from last year. This is the elite level pass rusher that we're talking about. And even if you want to take a look at it from pressures as well, because sacks are not the only stat that you look at. How about pressures? How often do you impact the quarterback, even if you're not able to get the sack, to move him off of his spot, to force him into an ugly throw to maybe lead to an interception, or to force him to move outside of the pocket and go off schedule and things like that? How often do you impact a quarterback? And Josh Allen was fourth in that. The only people with more pressures than him, he had 46, are TJ Watt with 50, Max Crosby also with 50, and then Aiden Hutchinson led the NFL with 62 pressures, which is insane. I mean, again, from first place to second place, going from 62 to 50 just lets you know how dominant Aiden Hutchinson was this past season. That's the most pressures in the NFL, easily by far. But again, Josh Allen was fourth above Nick Bosa, Micah Parsons, Danielle Hunter, Montez Sweat, Chris Jones, Myles Garrett, all of these other elite edge rushers, Khalil Mack, even Trey Hendrickson, who was tied for second in the NFL in sacks with Josh Allen. Josh Allen had far more pressures than him, 11 more. 46 Josh Allen, Trey Hendrickson 35. So, man, I'm telling you, this is an elite pass rusher. This is a top 5 pass rusher in the NFL. If you can snag a guy like that at arguably the second most important position in the NFL, you got to do it if you can. And then to compare him to our guys. So again, Josh Allen had 17.5 sacks this past season. Casey Toohill, because again, Chase Young and Montez Sweat are traded away, so we can't count them. You have Casey Toohill, who have the most with 5. And then second most is KJ Henry with 1.5. James Smith-Williams had 1, and nobody else had a single sack. So if you add up all of the remaining edge rushers who are still here, because again, Chase Young and Montez Sweat are gone, if you add up their sacks, they add up to a total of 7.5. Josh Allen had 17.5 himself. That's how serious of a need that we have for edge rusher right now, specifically a guy like Josh Allen. Let's take a look at pressures. Again, Josh Allen had 46. James Smith-Williams had 9. Casey Toohill had 8. KJ Henry had 2. Jalen Harris had 1. And then Andre Jones and NFL Bada weren't able to record a single pressure at all. So if you total up all of the pressures that all of the edge rushers that we currently have on roster right now from last year with the 20 that they had all combined, that's still less than half of the 46 that Josh Allen had alone last year. This is the caliber of player that we need, that we're talking about. This is the perfect marriage of elite player in desperate need that is going on right now for the Commanders. And that's why Miss Marissa Myers said that we are the top landing spot for his services when you combine desperation, and we're going to talk about cap space later, and then you also add in the elite talent. You combine those three things, it makes sense that we would be the team most likely to get him, or the team that makes the most sense, because again, the Jaguars can block him with the franchise tag. We'll talk about that soon. But when you're talking any stat that you look at, I mean, there's a clear desperate need. And let's just go back to Josh Allen individually, not even comparing him to other Commanders. If you want to take a look at grades, he had the 11th highest grade out of all edge rushers in the NFL from this past season. If you want to take a look at pass rush grade alone with an 89.4 in that specific area, he was 8th in the NFL, which is incredible, man. So if you're taking a look at stats, grades, whatever, Josh Allen is elite, top 10, top 5, whichever way you want to look at it. And then when you're ranking the NFL's 10 most valuable edge rushers of the 2023 season, Josh Allen was 8th in there. When it comes to wins above replacement, 0.34, he was 8th in the NFL, only behind Aiden Hutchinson, Khalil Mack, TJ Watt, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, and Nick Bosa. And the article said Allen ranks 5th among edge rushers in total pressures in the season, coming on 406 pass rushing snaps. 27 of those pressures have been either a sack or a quarterback hit, while the Jaguar star also forced a pair of forced fumbles. And man, do we need that? When was the last time we just strip sacked a quarterback? When was the last time you can vividly remember a Commanders player strip sacking a quarterback, man? We need some of that, man. And then also, to the point that I foreshadowed earlier, this man Josh Allen has gotten better every year, considerably better, because his rookie season in 2019 he had a 68.4 grade, then in 2020 he had a 69.6 grade, then 2021 he boosted all the way up to a 78.5 grade, and then 2022 an 84.7, and then 2023 his highest grade with an 89.5 so far in his career. Again, top 11 edge rusher grade stuff, and then again statistically he's a top 5 edge rusher. But either way, I love the fact that every year he's getting noticeably better. I mean, he went up 3 points from 2019 to 2020, and then he went up 9 points from 2020 to 2021, and then he went up 6 points from 2021 to 2022, and then went up 5 points from 2022 to 2023. Always some steady, very noticeable improvement from this guy. I mean, I just don't see how you can't just feel desperate to get a guy like that. I mean, not only to be elite, but to show the trajectory that you're always getting better by season, which means that if he was top 5 in edge rusher stats this past season, you could project him to be top 3, top 2, or even have a chance to lead the NFL in certain stats like pressures or sacks next year. So I just, y'all know me, man, I'm big on, is this guy improving over time, constantly improving, constantly getting better, especially when it comes to like the quarterback position, when we're looking at the draft and things like that. As far as draft prospects goes, guys that we may want to take, I'm always looking at does a guy, what is the trend on this guy? Is he constantly, just like stocks, is this guy constantly improving, or is he volatile? Is he up and down? Josh Allen's one of those guys that's constantly improving. The 5 years that he's been in the NFL, it's only gotten better, 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 better. He didn't have a single setback season. I absolutely love that. That shows a guy that's coachable and is always working to improve and to perfect his craft. I love it, man. And if you're feeling real dangerous, if you're feeling frisky, you can go ahead and get Brian Burns on top of it. Add that in there as well. Let's bring them in as a package deal, because they are actually very compatible. Now, cap space wise, that's where it gets a little ugly. But if we're talking schematically, X's and O's wise, they're very compatible, because Brian Burns has mostly played from the left side of the defensive line, and Josh Allen just so happens to mostly play from the right side. When you're taking a look at their snap counts from last year, more than half of Brian Burns' snaps came from left outside linebacker. Only 282 of them came from right outside linebacker, compared to left outside linebacker, he had 490. And then Josh Allen, he had 419 snaps from right edge, and then 364 snaps from right outside linebacker out of his 869 snaps. When it comes to left outside linebacker, it's completely far away. 44 snaps compared to, again, 364 and 419, all from the right side, just different positions from the right side. I mean, come on, man. Like, the compatibility right there is insane. Now, do we have the money to afford something like that? Technically, yes, but the problem is, of course, if you're doing that, that's a lot of money to pour into one position with all of the needs that we have top to bottom on this roster. And to spend big money on one edge rusher while you are technically rebuilding, is one thing, but to go get 2 at the same time is pretty crazy. And Adam Peters said, and I also showed you in my breakdown, throughout his history of being a talent evaluator for the Broncos and the 49ers. I did that in a video yesterday if you want a full in-depth view on that he prefers to build his Super Bowl contenders through the draft more than anywhere else, including free agency and trades. When it comes to trades, free agency, draft, it's like 85%, probably even 90% draft when it comes to how he prefers to build his teams. But again, the reason the Commanders would potentially get at least one of these guys makes a lot of sense, because we don't have any edge rushers. And when you even look at the draft, which is where Adam Peters prefers to build his Super Bowl contenders, if you're not taking edge rusher in one of the first 2 rounds, which I highly doubt we do, then you're banking on a developmental guy 3rd round or later. And now granted, Adam Peters is elite at finding talent after the 2nd and 3rd rounds, but still, man, I mean, are we gonna literally bank on that? Is that gonna be like our crutch? I'm not sure, because it looks like we're more than likely drafting quarterback 1st round with that 2nd overall pick or whatever we end up doing with it. And then within the first 2 rounds, more than likely offensive line and DB or tight end potentially. So not even necessarily based on need, but more so based on what's available in the draft. Just because we need edge rusher really bad doesn't necessarily mean the NFL draft is just going to 3D print a bunch of edge rushers for us to draft in the 2nd round or later. Especially with positional value involved, because edge rushers typically, if they're worth anything, they're highly likely to go within the first 2 rounds anyway. And again, based on the needs that we have, and based on availability with the talent in this draft coming up, edge rusher just doesn't sound very likely in the draft. At the very least, impactful edge rusher within the first 2 rounds. I just don't see it. We need tackle, tight end, DB more based on what's available, what we need, all that type of stuff. So it gets really complicated. If you had to pick whether we would take edge rusher in draft or free agency, it sounds like free agency makes the most sense. Again, based on most supply more than anything else. But also, can we afford Josh Allen just even by himself? Well, right now, Spot Track estimates that his current market value is at $23.9 million per year, and that he wouldn't even necessarily reset the market, which is really interesting, because I actually do kind of expect him to reset the market, because right now TJ Watt is making $28 million a year, Joey Bosa is making 27, Rashawn Gary for some reason is making 24, and then Bradley, even though I remember him coming out of high school, he was the #1 player of his class. I remember that coming out of New Jersey. That was a whole crazy thing. And then Bradley Chubb is making $22 million a year. And don't get me wrong, Rashawn Gary is a good player, but he's definitely not living up to arguably one of the best high school recruits of all time level, like expectations that people have for him. People were expecting him to basically be like Aaron Donald level. He's still good, but still though, that's a lot of money for Rashawn Gary, I'm not gonna lie. But either way, they're projecting him to get somewhere in between Rashawn Gary and Bradley Chubb money, and I think he would more than likely get more than that. But even if he does, we can still afford him, because when you're taking a look at our cap space, we lead the NFL in cap space by at least almost like $10 million from the guy in 2nd place, the Titans. We have $84 million in cap space. The Titans have $74 million in cap space, again going from 1 to 2. Where are the Jaguars? 19th in cap space with $17.5 million. Again, we have $83.5 million. Like, come on, dog. Like, when it comes to who can offer him the most money, we got that. Again, the only thing is, do the Jaguars do everything it takes to keep him? And that even includes, I mean, of course, signing him to a long-term contract immediately. Maybe he just wants to stay in Jacksonville. Maybe he loves the weather. Maybe he loves the team. He doesn't want to move. Or do they delay the eventual long-term contract, in their eyes, hopefully a long-term contract, by franchise tagging them this offseason and then trying to figure it out later? Well, from our experience as Commanders fans, when you franchise tag a guy, you typically don't end up signing them long-term anyway. So it's kind of like you do it now and just let them go, from our experience. So we'll see what the Jaguars do, how desperate they are to keep him, whether they franchise tag him or not. I think it's quite likely that they do franchise tag him, but we'll see, man. Hopefully they let him go. And if the Jaguars don't franchise tag him, I honestly believe, with good reason, that we are the most likely landing spot for him, because we have a huge needed edge rusher, and we also have the most cap space in the NFL. Also, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Adam Peters is also very aggressive on our end as far as getting to him. Again, if the Jaguars don't franchise tag him, I could see us being the most aggressive as far as pursuers going after Josh Allen, because remember, Adam Peters and his Super Bowl 50 winning Broncos and his dominant 49ers Super Bowl contender that is currently going on right now, still in playoff contention, both have elite, impactful edge rushers and pass rushers, and we don't have that at all here. he may want to knock that one out in free agency and then build everything else through the draft. Like, just let me go ahead and get my elite edge rusher now, and then we can worry about everything else through the draft like I typically like to do. Because, like, honestly, if I had to bet money on one position that we are most likely to get a top 5 free agent guy at that respective position, I would say it's edge rusher over tackle, over guard, over corner, over safety, over any other position that you can think of. I would bet money that if we do go after a top free agent, if we don't just go bargain bin shop in this free agency period, if we just go after any top guy, I'm willing to bet money that it would be edge rusher over any other position. Because again, it's a perfect marriage of top talent available in free agency and not being a very deep position in the draft. And we have a serious need for it. And on top of that, like I just said, Adam Peters, every great team that he's been a part of building, they've had an elite edge rusher, a true game-changing edge rusher in Von Miller for the Broncos and Nick Bosa for the 49ers. Does he even know how to build a team without having that? So we'll see. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in that comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points. Do you want Josh Allen just as bad? Do you want Josh Allen and Brian Burns? Do you think it's realistic to potentially get both of those guys? Or if you had to pick between the two, who do you prefer? Do you prefer Josh Allen or Brian Burns? I know Brian Burns over there. I remember his little exit interview in the Carolina Panthers locker room saying that he doesn't feel valued. He doesn't feel like he's a priority there. So I think it's quite likely that he ends up leaving, but you never know. Maybe they could turn things around with the right price. Who knows? But either way, Josh Allen or Brian Burns, who do you prefer between those two? Or do you prefer another free agent like a Patrick Queen at linebacker or a different top free agent at a different position? Who are you prioritizing the most? Is it Josh Allen or somebody else? Let me know why. And of course, make sure you stiff arm that like button on the way out, please. Make sure you stiff arm that subscription button and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I'm releasing a video just like this one. Free agency, draft, live streams, everything. Mock drafts, any important Commanders information, whether it's a rumor or a fact, we're going to talk about it here. One-stop shop for everything Commanders. I really appreciate y'all. Again, I'm trying my best to try to read and reply to as many comments as possible, but super busy. I appreciate y'all. I'm going to catch y'all later. Stay patient. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.